And I would like to introduce Kenzie, although I don't think she really needs much introduction. Kenzie has just, I mean, she has hit the ground running, and it's amazing how quickly she's developed all these amazing skills. But when you look at her background, you start to understand why. She's world renowned. She's an award winning fine art photographer and a digital artist known for her evocative, surreal imagery that delves into the depths of human emotion, struggle, and transformation. She has a background spanning social work, psychological studies, and multiple artistic disciplines. So her work is not just about aesthetics, it's about storytelling, connection, and confronting the raw complexities
No,
in
that's
life.
okay. What?
That Dr. DeRose was a
Hold on just a minute.
radiation on.
Oh, she got it. It's always fun when someone in the background starts to talking and you're going, what? Kenzie's always been drawn to the intricacies of the human experience, not only as a means of artistic expression, but also as a way to challenge our perceptions and ignite deeper conversations about resilience, vulnerability, and the search for meaning. Her artistic path has been an unconventional fusion of disciplines shaped by a relentless curiosity and a deep desire to explore the intersection of craft, emotion, and storytelling. A carpenter, a muralist, props master, oil painter, and social worker before she fully embraced photography. Her background informs her distinctive style. By merging fine art, photography, and digital manipulation, she creates striking, otherworldly compositions that blur the line between reality and imagination. As a result, her work has garnered widespread recognition, competing with top photographers and artists worldwide, earning her international acclaim and prestigious awards in both the photography and the fine art community. She believes that true artistry comes from embracing both light and darkness, the dual forces that shape us. And through her work, she invites viewers to explore their own emotions, break free from limitations, and see the beauty in both struggle and strength. When you look at her work, you will see this evidence throughout everything that she does. And it's very exciting to see what Kenzie has created, and even more exciting that she's willing to share her process with us, how she thinks through these images. We will get a little bit of that today. I think she said she's worked hard to cram as much information as she can in this 1 hour Zoom. And we also are offering a 2-day workshop, November 1st and 2nd. And the link there for more information is in our chat if you would like to look at it. But it is very robust. She's covering creating the vision, building the set, shooting the elements with cohesive lighting, the prep layout for editing day, post-processing, embellishment, all the different kinds of embellishment. It goes on and on and on. So really excited that she's offered to do that for us. But even more so that we get to visit with her tonight. So Kenzie, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for the introduction. I'm going to share this. Now, just so that everybody knows, I have Photoshop as a friend. However, technology is usually not my friend. So computers have been known to explode in front of me just by my presence. So I'm going to start just a little bit about how my brain works and how I come up with these ideas and how I formulate them, and really the process of the step-by-step how to do everything. That's more of the 2-day workshop. And I'm totally open. If you guys have questions, you can totally spitball them at me, and let's just dive in. So I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful for ASP for giving me this opportunity. I'm Kenzie Hunter, and the easiest way to describe me is that I'm a jack of all trades. So, like was mentioned, before I ever picked up a camera, I have a lot of things that I have done. So I've been a carpenter, I've been a muralist, I've been a scenic artist. I worked at Hobby Lobby as a framer. And I even started my master's in counseling. And you can totally laugh. Most people do. But honestly, I just get bored. and I love a challenge. I love learning new things. And that's great because I've never really done things the standard or appropriate ways that most people find the easier route. But I always manage to find super innovative ways to create and develop my work. So, one story to just kind of let you know what you're in for for this hour or the 2-day workshop is this year, my husband and I decided to take a date night and go to a pottery place. And it's at the Hot Shops downtown in Omaha. And it's like a 3-story like art haven. So there's a bunch of different alcoves of all different artists. And you can stop in, they do classes. It's a wonderful thing. So we decided to go in, and he's never tried the pottery wheel. And I have, but it was a decade or two ago. I'll let you guess on that. But in high school, we did pottery wheel. So I haven't touched it since. And we walked in, and the instructor said, let's go ahead. Have you guys done this before? And I said, well, I have, but it's been years. And my husband said, no, I haven't. And he goes, okay, well, go ahead. Let's see what you got. And I kind of was like, all right, are you going to give me any pointers so I can remember what I'm doing? And he said, no, I just want to see what you remember. I said, all right. So I sat down, I threw my block and started working. And this instructor starts furrowing his brow, and he's just like watching what I'm doing. And my husband's watching the instructor. He's watching me. He's watching the instructor because this is almost a game to him now because he likes to see how are people going to take her. It's kind of a joke for him because it's always just the most bizarre reactions. And as I'm finishing up my pot, he looks over to the instructor and he goes, "What do you think? How's she doing? Is she doing it right?" And now the instructor is like scowling, and he is just zoned in, and he's just staring at my stuff. And he goes, "She is doing everything foundationally wrong, and it's still working, and it makes no sense. And I'm interested, but frustrated, but I'm definitely going to figure out why and how she's doing this. It's so confusing, but it's very intriguing." And that's really just consistent. My husband said, she gets that a lot. So that's kind of what you're in for is I don't really do anything consistent like everyone else will do it. I just kind of come up with it and run with it. So let's play a game. I want everybody to close their eyes and actually close your eyes. I may not be able to see all of you, but I can see some of you. So I want you to picture an apple in your mind. Picture it as vividly as you can. Where's the light coming from? How deep is the color? Does it have a stem, a leaf? Can you rotate it? Visualize as much as you can about this apple to get a really clear picture in your mind. Now open your eyes. Now, how many people saw the apple as clear as you would a picture, or if it were right in front of you or on a TV screen? Okay, Bob. You can't see if anybody else. Fujiko. Okay. Who didn't? And because I can't see everybody, yell me if you can't picture it.
Everybody's muted.
Somebody started to say me. Who was it?
I can't do it.
Who is me? Robin?
Yeah.
Robin!
What?
Really?
I know.
Oh, okay. I have a buddy. So I do this often at like all conventions. Anytime that I speak, I do this test because it helps so much in describing how my brain works and how I function as an artist. So for those of you like Robin and me who didn't immediately see something, you might have aphantasia. So if you haven't heard about it, aphantasia is the basically mental blindness. You cannot visualize it. And what that means is that I don't see anything. When I close my eyes and I try and picture something, there's nothing. And the best way to describe it is that if I close my eyes, picture an apple, I've seen an apple. I know what an apple looks like. And I understand the spatial and conceptual idea of an apple, but I feel and experience my ideas before visually implementing them. So the best way to describe it, I've learned this over the years since finding about aphantasia and realizing that, oh my gosh, this plays such a huge part in my creation, is a lot of people with aphantasia have no idea that it exists, and people who don't have it, a lot of them have no idea it exists. But for those who can picture it, if you close your eyes and someone puts a hand right up next to your face, you still know that something's close to your face and you might even lean back. Now you can't picture it. How do you know that that's coming towards your face? Or if you're sitting on a bed and you close your eyes and someone walks in the room, you know that someone's walking in the room. All of those little pieces are what I use to put together how I understand visual without it actually being a visual implementation in my mind. So in running this little test, I have learned a lot about aphantasia. I've learned that there are not many with aphantasia. And Robin, I'm super stoked that you said that you can't picture anything, because usually it's crickets or I get maybe one person in the class. So this will help, and hopefully you'll be able to pitch in also when people ask questions about aphantasia. But the number one question that I always get after explaining about aphantasia is, seriously? Like, that can't be real. Followed immediately by, well, if you can't see it, how do you do that? So there's a long and a short answer. The longer answer is I focus on the story and the emotion of the most center part of my image, and then I craft every aspect around it. And it usually starts as a super ugly sketch so that I can actually visualize my composition. Where am I bringing focus? What helps pull the viewer back into the original purpose in the most compelling way? And as I'm developing each of these ideas in Photoshop, that's really where I can start playing with it and having fun. So sometimes I'll grab what's available in my studio and I just make it work. Sometimes I'll find tiny items or pieces of items and adapt them into an element in Photoshop. I may draw an element in Photoshop. I have sculpted elements for Photoshop to just kind of cut the time. And recently this year, I've been doing a lot of skeletons. And I have been sick. So if I start coughing or having that, just, I'm going to ignore it. You ignore it. I'm totally fine. But I have a lot of skeletons in the studio. I also have a lot of anatomy books, medical books that I can study when I'm implementing. But the skeletons that I have in the studio, they aren't three-dimensional with their feet and their hands. They're really flat. So I decided to just sculpt one out of clay. So this is a foot. And in studying the pictures of how it would look, now that I have a three-dimensional aspect, Bob, I see your skeleton. He'd be friends with all mine. I've got a whole crew back here. But I can study it and then create it. And this is just out of dry clay. It's, air dry clay with wire and hot glue. So it doesn't have to be super fancy. It's a lot easier to just throw it together, put it somewhere where you can light it correctly, and then drop it into Photoshop, because we can do a lot of that in Photoshop, but it's a lot faster to not have to. At the same time, I also did a hand. So having that element where the wire can bend, where you can rotate it or do what you need to, definitely helps. And in doing all of these outside of Photoshop, it doesn't only save time, but it helps you be more creative. This year, I've been implementing a lot more cardboard sets, and I'll show you back here. I might be able to lift it over me, but back in here is a little set that I haven't officially got running in competition, but it is a little display case, almost like a museum. And I have the entire thing built out of cardboard. So they're little working LED lights. That's Bob Ross in there. He won't be in the picture in the final, but he does say inspiring things. So all of these things can be used, and we all have cardboard from all of our clients that is just sitting there and, burn pile, or we call it box mountain when it gets to be a little too aggressive, that it just gets overwhelming. So I always have cardboard that I can use and cut up, and it doesn't take much. So you can use it as a base. And during this series, I started these pieces last year. All of these pieces have bits of my house. So my husband and I bought a house that was built in 1890. So we have a dirt basement. And while we're digging out the dirt basement with 5-gallon buckets, I kind of realized that kind of looks like cliffs. So I decided to start taking pictures of our dirt basement so that I could implement them throughout my art. So luckily, that's the long answer of how I do it. The short answer is in a video. And this is a quick little video. Can you guys see the video?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now it's super grainy, so I apologize for that. It's taken from TikTok. So that was the crappy little sketch. This is some of my dirt basement. And I decided to steal legs from the other picture. And I used a brush that I've designed from using my brushes here in the studio of just dabbing on paper of how I would detail rocks if I were painting. I've created brushes with that. I decided it was ready to shoot the model, so we went to my friend's warehouse and we used the forklift. I needed a specific fall in the model's face and her body to replicate it. So we threw on some slip knots and had the mattress there for safety and got the model in and started to get everything laid out for her shoot. And I got what I needed. So I took her top half and I put it here in Photoshop and started emulating how the light would hit her in the scene that I've already created with the basement cliffs. And my model's awesome. She knows, she's a dancer. She's wonderful. A lot of the time I will put her in positions or want her in positions that will probably break her in half. So there are a lot of times where I will just have her do one part with her legs and then I will take the top half or the arm that's gonna be broken if we bend it that way. That's how I'll organize all of that. But she's awesome. So yes, I used a forklift for my model. Why? So with aphantasia, I've come to realize that I notice a lot of the little things, like the way that gravity will affect the fall of skin. And I have little kids. If you have little kids, or if you have grandkids, or you're around kids, period, you've probably had a conversation with them where they're upside down. And for those of you who can picture it, go ahead and picture it. I can't, Robin can't. But for those of you who can picture it, go ahead. But think about it. When they're upside down, they don't look like themselves. And it's because of the placement of the folds and different densities of your skin. So you have to think about the collection of tissue, the fat, the muscle, everything shifts when the gravity is impacted on it. So I'm conscious enough to know that I've seen my kids upside down a lot, probably way more than normal, but I haven't studied the entire body. So especially with this model and having limited clothes, I wouldn't be able to replicate it effectively for a competition piece by memory. So I needed that verification image to recreate from. Now, one of the most common things that I'm told when people start to grasp all of the different types of art or mediums that I play in is, well, I'm not an artist. I could never do that. And that honestly, it just breaks my heart because there's so much potential for creativity and photography based in physical arts. And you simply just have to be willing to try and navigate within a realm that you may not be comfortable in for just a little bit. And these are some of the products in the past that I'll touch on in my 2-day workshop, but utilizing clay, wax, foam, paint, hot glue, resin, like my house is littered with all of these items constantly because I have so many projects going. And when you get stuck on something, you have to look at it differently and go, ooh, how could I make that? Or what would be the best way to do this? I wonder if it could work with wax. What if I did it with foam? So having these ideas and not limiting yourself to only creating in Photoshop or only creating with what's already real, it just gives you more flexibility in being able to create something that not a lot of people could come up with or have come up with. And all of them lead to really incredible pieces if you just start with what if. Now, these two pieces on the left were absolutely created by the what if. So for the left image, I didn't have a model and I was forced to model it myself. With the competition deadline looming, I had very young kids and now they are 7 and 11, but they were much younger. And it was tough to try and schedule something to get in for competition and then also have time to edit it. So that's me. Uh, in reality, I had to just pull whatever I could. So I jumped up, I wrapped myself with some newborn wraps that I had in the studio. I had a twine spool that I ended up using as my hair and a potpourri ball that was sitting on the desk to stand on. And there was a rice hat that was in the studio that was really cool. So the whole thing was just kind of thrown together and I was like, this is a weird pose and let's make it happen. And I grabbed the rice hat because I was using my phone as a trigger. So I had to hide my face and the trigger in order to make it work so that I could have a piece for competition. And the image on the right was a piece for my mother who survived breast cancer. And it's modeled by a friend who was undergoing chemo at the time. And I had leftover fluff from the heavenscape in that previous page. So I decided, like, what if I stuffed pantyhose with this fluff and I could create a pile of breasts to have this storyline that I could title One of Many and give an honorary piece to women who have battled breast cancer, who have lost the fight. And that really resonated. And when people find out that the pile is just fluff from pillows and everything else stuffed into pantyhose, they're like, what? But it's all about the imagination of it. You don't have to have a judge inspect exactly what it is. It's the what could it be? And your brain will do the rest of it. So this isn't about just making random stuff and throwing it in to random pieces of art that you can make work. Editing in this mentality is also simplified. So I love showing people this little glimpse of creating dimension. And I do this a lot when people will come to me with help for editing or in a class, they'll want to know, how do you do that though? And this is just super simplified version of it. This is how I edit almost everything that's in my work currently. But it's creating dimension and just using multiply and linear dodge layers. So this is more of what we'll cover in the 2-day workshop when we go over editing. And it's about paying attention to light and shadow in their tonal range as an artist and a photographer. It's just dodging and burning with color and texture. So I'm just making a circle and I'm going to make a layer and I'm going to drop it down to tether it to it. I'm selecting the color, putting it on multiply, really low opacity soft brush. And I'm just going to start to build up the shadow. This is the same that I would do if I were painting on canvas. So I like working in different layers. So I'm selecting that darker color now because as color starts to get darker, it will deepen. And selecting those color variations will give you the richer tone in the multiply. So I'm just kind of choosing the darker color, darker color, darker color as I build it up so that it'll give it that three-dimensionality. Now that's just one layer. We're going to make another layer and toggle it down on that sphere also. That's a linear dodge. So I'm going to select that lighter color we started with and make a little circle and then kind of that little glint that you'll get in eyes when you have the correct lighting. I'm going to have a middle layer on here. I'm just going to leave on normal because the shadow went a little too high. So I picked the original color and just toned down the shadow just a smidgen. And I'm going to deepen that multiply layer just a little. I'm making a layer right under the circle because you'll need a shadow. Otherwise, the ball is just going to float. So now that we have that little bit of a shadow, I'm going to go in and I'm going to hit blur because shadows never really have a crisp edge unless you're in that harsh light. So I blur it just a little bit. Now we have a spherical ball. That process, just having that multiply and the linear dodge layer is the most reduced way for me to show you how I edit. And we'll cover a lot more of that in the 2-day workshop. But really, the screen, multiply, soft light, those 3 layers I will use 100 times and I'll flatten the object, make it a smart object, and then start again and continue drawing and continue making the depth and continue doing the detailing. And that's how I do it. So now, when I first discovered aphantasia was a thing, I really thought everyone was lying. I I didn't think people could really do it, and I thought they were all lying to me. And then I wondered what was wrong with me. I didn't know if my brain was broken. I just thought it would be so much easier if I could do it like everyone else. If I could picture it and then create from just what I have in my mind, that would be incredible. But when I stopped thinking like that and I stopped evaluating it in that negative way, I realized that it may be more of like a brilliant superpower that I've developed because I've had to study every aspect of hue and depth and clarity and light and shadow and texture, just all of it that everybody took for granted for the most part. But this obsession to the tiniest detail was a huge benefit for me when I started competing and talking to other photographers that were really blown away by how much detail I had and how much attention I paid to those little aspects in my work. But it definitely helped when I was an oil artist because I would love to get into every single little detail of the faces when I was painting a portrait in oil, and wrinkles I loved because you could get in the little tiny nitty gritty. And it really helps you capture the realism that a lot of people may struggle with. So this is similar to what I call the ADHD diamond. And funny enough, this image was my first diamond, but that's not the story. My daughter is also on the spectrum, and she has mild autism and ADHD. And I've helped her understand that our brains are faceted like a diamond. And when you are on the spectrum, you have many more facets. And we see things in such great and overwhelming detail, it can be hard for us to be understood or to understand what's typically easy for most. But because we have so much information constantly flooding our brains through all of these diamond facets, we see a million more lights and a million more rainbows projected and more colors and options and potential than what is the typical normal also. So this image was created for her, and a lot of people will just freeze up when I say this, but it was taken by a cell phone. And because my ADHD was focused on momming this day, I totally forgot to grab my good camera. And that was that. So I saw this image and I decided, screw it. I like it anyway. Let's take a picture of it with my cell phone and I'll see what I can do. And the point is that being an artist, creating art is not about what it is. It's about what it could be if you allow it to go to the next level. So ta-da, isn't that awful? That's my cell phone picture. So I didn't even bother. I didn't even bother to get the whole body, guys. I don't even know what's behind them. So now some backstory that will outline how I came to find my own little style of art and expression. So we're all very aware that this image sucks. It's pretty bad. But it's pretty bad even as a base to be painted. But honestly, I have had worse, and that's okay. And I was learning, I was trying new things. But as I became more professional, I found a lot of criticism and still often find myself in conversations where very skilled photographers will ask how I consider my work photography, and they would never actually know that I started in the darkroom. So when I was doing film and I started in the darkroom, my brain really struggled to grasp the standard foundational aspects of shooting manual and understanding the rules. And honestly, I just loved photography because of the dark room. I wanted to play. I wanted to see like if you mess with it and if you speckle or if you don't mix it correctly or if you add this to it and mess up the film. What if we scratch the film and we tried that? I just wanted to play in the dark room because I wanted to see what we could bring out of the image more than just what was originally taken to begin with. And honestly, I feel like that's kind of followed me throughout the years as I've trailed into my different realms. For all of you film photographers, I think we all know that I was not at the top of that class. I barely passed that class. I wanted to play more than I wanted to follow all the rules that the teacher was giving. But then life happened. So during the last 2 years of college, my brother died by suicide. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and my autoimmune disorder reached a new high. I was a newlywed with a very sick newborn, and I really just had no idea where I fit. So when my daughter was born, I decided to just pick up a camera again and try and get these newborn pictures. And I realized in that 7 or 8 year stretch since college, I had literally forgotten every single thing that I had really pressured myself to learn about manual shooting. So I definitely stumbled through my hobbyist phase and I officially launched a business. I filed the paperwork at the end of 2019. I had a crappy Canon, I had $100 office space rental, and I had $50 in my account, and I was determined. I also had a constant light from Amazon, so I was stoked and I was ready to roll. I did decent for a new business baby, but I learned very quickly that I was doing a lot wrong the more that I was studying my work versus everyone else's work. But I didn't have money to fix it, and I was fighting for time with a special needs toddler, and I had another newborn, but you really have to find a way. And so I decided I forced myself every single night for a year that for 2 hours I was going to watch YouTube every single night and learn Photoshop. And so that's what I did. I hated it, but it's my personal belief that when you target your weakness and you overpower that mental game, you remove the option of failure. So I knew without the ability to purchase classes or gear or really quality anything, I needed to learn everything I could about correcting my flaws for everything I butchered in camera and fix it in Photoshop after. So that was my fix it in Photoshop. Everything is free little chapter. So everything that I butchered in camera, I did learn how to fix in the most haphazard ways. It really frustrated a lot of judges when I first started. But right around this time is when I did finally hear about PPA and print competition. I had no idea that it existed, and a whole new world of pros that knew way more than I did. So these two images on the screen were a few of my very first artist case for my very first competition in 2020. And you'll notice these tiny guide images were shot in my kitchen with a black bed sheet that is covered in dog hair and surrounded by Amazon boxes. And there's a lot of stuff that you can pick apart in these images. I thought they were awesome when I started, but you make it work. If you have Amazon boxes and a black sheet and you're shooting in your kitchen with a constant light, you make it work. So that's what I did. Now I was a bright and shiny rookie, but I was hella eager. But I was super frustrated that my learning style was so different than the norm, and I couldn't get a grip on competition and why it was so different. I know Gina and I talked about this. Gina's probably muted, but we talked about this a little bit before it started tonight. And competition is very different from fine art realm. So I started learning by really studying other photographers' award-winning work, and I attempted, mostly unsuccessfully, to replicate the style or posing or lighting or how did they do that. And I wanted to learn by doing to improve the foundational technical skills and develop techniques in Photoshop that could lead me to the next level. I had built my business to where I was bringing in the income that I had dreamed of, and I was bringing in all the clients and I was doing all the stuff. And really, I had the cool professional level gear that I knew how to use now. So I was really rocking it. I was super proud of myself. And I even took a year during that time to start painting animals for competition because I had no idea how to paint in Photoshop. And I love painting outside of Photoshop, but it was super confusing. So there were a lot of flowers and animals that were painted in Photoshop to study. And I figured that feathers and fur were a lot easier than faces because I had heard a lot of judges talk about pores being a problem. They wanted pores or they didn't want pores. So I was like, forget it. We're going to go fur. We're going to go fur and feathers. Here we go. Now pause. I know that it seems like a tangent, but this all has a direct link to how I create what I do. So each phase of my business has layered on top of each other. And I've taken little golden nuggets of every aspect of photography and art and design and psychology, and I've developed it into this primary question. Why not? Yes, I am that guy. My bad. I pushed the wrong button. Yep, there it is. I pushed the wrong button. Sorry, guys. I am that guy. I am the why not guy. I apologize to anyone in here who has had me in class. I am also the student that needs to prove something isn't actually going to work. Robin, you're laughing because you've been in class with me and you know exactly that I am that person. So I apologize. I've apologized to Mary Fisk Taylor. I asked her why a lot. And so that's what I do. I just need to know why, and I keep pushing because I want to understand it. And if I don't understand it, I want to push the limits because I want to know why it's deemed acceptable and why we can't. And if we do, what will happen? Because that's not only how you push the industry forward, it's how you push your own personal development forward. And competition doesn't really work that way. So it was very frustrating for me. And like the back of the hand rule, that it was either Carl Kaler or Bob Coates. I had been through so many competitions and I had never heard why this is not okay. And one of them mentioned it about how this catches so much more light because the skin is smaller. And I'm like, got it now. Thanks. So in my experience in fine art, success was either made by realism or it was made by innovation and creation. So I couldn't connect why that set of rules in Photoland were not the same. And luckily, these talented judges that I was listening to along this short little jaunt of like 3 years at this point could spot those technical issues and explain them in a way that made sense to me. And some of them had just undying patience for me, which I definitely appreciate. But I met multiple insanely talented photographers that could fill these gaps in the technical side of things for me and give me the industry guidance to really have the confidence to find my own path. So now we're back to this rhino. And this rhino meant a lot to me. And I just like to kind of leave this story for people who definitely compete a lot. But this rhino was made for my daughter. It won the entire year. It was one of the first pieces that I painted during that painted animal year. And it got all the way to districts. It sealed right away. And I broke the seal first time ever to fix one spot that I noticed. And it went to IPC. And I thought this was my big chance that I was going to play with the big boys finally. Like I was going to be up there. And this would be the thing that really got my name on the map. And it got up in IPC. It went up first round and it died immediately. All red X's across the screen, and it just crushed me. So I had to step away and I have no idea what happened. I still don't know. And it really just like made you start to rethink. And I took those moments of reevaluating like why am I doing competition and what does this mean? And how much do you let this influence your work, your art? And I was at a conference a couple months later with a really well-known instructor, love her to death. I have all the respect in the world for her. Didn't know she was listening to me, but I was helping a newbie who was interested in competition. And I was telling them all the positives of competition, but I'm also really real and I'll give you both sides evenly. And was telling them, you have to also take it with a grain of salt. The judges always want to help and they do have more experience. So they're gonna say some things you might not agree with, or they might, you know, tank your image, whatever it is. Like with this rhino, it won all year long. I was super excited for it and it died. I still don't know why. It won a lot, but it happens. And this instructor interrupted me and said, "You're talking about that rhino piece." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "That died at IPC." And I said, "Yeah, first round." And she just, this is the first time she's ever been grumpy with me. She kind of laid it out for me and said, "If you're going to let that one thing stop you, you are not the artist that I thought you were, because this one needs to be seen again. And if you're not going to send that back in and give it a second chance, you're not believing in yourself, you're not believing in your work, and you're not giving it a second chance to be seen and be valued for what it is." And so I was like, "Oh, okay, little life lesson." So I sat on it and I decided after a year, screw it, why not? So I threw it back in and it won. It won its category at the first new IPC. It was my first diamond. It was the first digital art diamond winner for the new IPC method. And my friends call it the Rhino Redemption. So it was really wonderful to get to experience that because my family was also there. And my daughter, I think it was Boo Ray said it was a hippo or something during the awards. And my daughter, who I made the piece for, screamed that it's not a hippo, it's a rhino. So it was just a really fun experience. But that was really the validation I needed to make a really scary jump. So I felt that I finally understood competition as much as you could. I had relearned that manual shooting and had that successful client business, and I got all my professional equipment and I knew how to use it. So of course I had to shift things entirely.
Kenzie, Robin
Yes,
wanted to know if you changed anything or if you re-entered it straight as it was.
I changed that little thing that I had seen.
Uh-huh.
And then I went back and made sure that it was the correct file size because technology is not my friend. So I don't know if I sent in a weird size file,
Uh-huh.
but I really didn't change much. So I still don't know what happened with it, but
You never know at the end of the day. Sometimes it's just subjective.
it wound up being good. So I'm glad I sent it in,
Fantastic.
and she cracked me over the side of the head with some life truth, but I love her for it. So all of this is going well, and then I had to put an abrupt stop to it because that's just my brain. So after running so hard and accomplishing these successes, I started to feel that weight of like, this is like heavy. And I started to lose the joy of it. So I went to a retreat with Brooke Shaden for creatives only. She's wonderful. She's like this super fairy woodland nymph. Love her to death. But her work is super dark and it's this really polarizing quality. So I love seeing that too and that dynamic. And when we got there, she made a point because we're all creatives. There were photographers, there were authors, there were artists and like needlework people and just everybody. And she made the announcement at the beginning that we are not going to show our work. You are just going to create with the other creatives that are here. And I about choked because at that point I had realized I had been developing my work so hard that I had forgotten to develop myself. So after that retreat, I came back and I said, I'm going to do something different and I want to create something. I'm not going to worry about competition. I'm just going to do what I feel. I'm going to start creating what I want and just play in both the fine art land and the photo land and see like how I can mash them together. And if it works in competition, cool. If not, I can start trying to figure out how to get into galleries and work on that whole thing. So that led me to a new philosophy. Sorry, I am getting croaky. And that editing philosophy is FAFO. Now, it's not the most palatable for anybody who does not know, but I don't have an exact science of replicating anything that I do besides that little thing that I just showed you of like, here the layer. We're making this thing look real by making it have depth. Done. But truly, the best way I can describe my process is FAFO. And for those who don't know, it is, I will say it nicely because it's recorded, fudge around and find out. And it's just allowing yourself to be authentic in your creation. And it means that you have to steer into the skid. You have to know that there's going to be a ton of failure. And I'm going to show you the first piece I created with this new mentality. I failed hard and fast and repeatedly. So I hope you find the humor in it. It is maintaining balance. And you may have seen this, it was on the front also. But this is my crappy little concept sketch. And this is just some pictures that I took of different paintings for like Asian landscapes. I messed up the color. I needed something with, I loved the dust. But then it turned into Kansas, but I wanted more dramatic. Well, now it's Assassin's Creed. And I repainted the whole thing, and now the cliff's wrong. So I went and shot the basement again and threw in some birds, and I guess, but now it's off balance. So I added more birds, and sure, let's call it good. But it's just kind of a process of failing and failing and failing until you get there. So people laugh at this now. I can laugh at this now. But this piece took me forever. And I just want to specify that when people ask, like, why did you do X, Y, Z? I can give you an answer. But when you say, how did you know that that would work? I don't. I had no idea. And that's okay. I think as professionals, we often forget that courage and curiosity are the keystones in self-awareness and development. And it gets buried under our standard to-do list of expectations and responsibilities. And especially in regards to photo competition, it's safer to fit the mold, but then you get lost in it. And having the courage to be curious and allowing the inner child to come out and to see unlimited possibilities of what could it be and how could I do it, it gives you the freedom to stand out and the freedom to start breaking rules and challenging the status quo. And honestly, when people are like, oh, but that takes so much time, I just don't know. Well, to me, time is a societal construct, and we have to learn to sit in the suck. And that's the best way to say it. And I've said it 100 times to people that I've helped with editing. You have to sit in the suck. It's going to suck for a long time, and you have to be okay with it. And you have to learn to appreciate that time also, and just remove the fear of time or the judgment of learning or not knowing something. Because if we're constantly pushing and racing and having that rat race in our head of do more, be better, do all this, we forget that the finish line is death. Like it's when we die. Because as soon as we finish this thing, the next thing's going to pop up and you're just going to keep racing and then you drop dead. So when you put it in that perspective, it helps you reframe the time concept. And I truly felt like this piece may take me to that point, but let's jump into specifics. As you can see, this is crappy. This is a super crappy sketch, and it doesn't have to be pretty. You just have to start. You just have to run with it and get a generalized idea. And this is how I do it because I can't visualize it. And focusing on the pose was my target area. And I realized the pose spoke to me. I was watching a ballet, I think, and I just thought how interesting it was that they could form these different shapes up on point with their arms and still lead this interest kind of flow to it. So I started really studying that. And I thought it was a really fine art vibe. So I wanted to play off this as a study of triangles, and the triangle being the strongest shape for structural integrity. By the dynamic pose of the model with the misshapen and haphazard composition, it created a sense of balance to me. And so I looked for meaning inside of that for understanding. And I like to come up with like a generalized idea for the title to help me formulate what else will be in the image. So this one really struck with me as being a woman and being a mother in today's society. And I didn't want the piece to show burden because that's not the intent of the story. That's not where we're going with it. Although at times we may feel overwhelmed, it's about the strength of the feminine power and maintaining balance in unlikely or mind-blowing situations. You're tethered to responsibility, but you're focused on the goal. You're tired, but you're resilient. You're on the edge, but you're steady. So stepping back away from all the feeling land, this was also super fun to figure out how to make all of this work. So a lot of the elements that are in this image are stuff that I had in the studio. And I find a lot of it at, we have a place called Brass Armadillo, which is like a super Walmart of antiques. And there are different booths that sellers bring their stuff to. And I just love popping in my earbuds and I'll just kind of walk. My husband dies laughing when I say I have a Brass Armadillo trip because he knows I'll be gone for 2 hours. But I put in my earbuds and I'll listen to like heavy metal or something that's like really loud and noisy so that when I'm walking through and I see a random object and I go, ooh, that made me stop. I'm listening to heavy metal. I have these loud, stuff going on in my head, but that made me stop. Why? So one of the things that did that is her shield. It's actually an old oil can that I've never seen one like it. It was like a dome. You guys probably have seen it. I'm probably just that. I live in my little editing cave. It's like a dome with oil in the can, and then it has a long spout that barely curls. And I went, that's a weird oil can. I'm going to buy it. So I bought it. Now, the bottom of the can is really rusted because it's super duper old. But when I turned it on its side, number one, I dumped oil everywhere. But when I turned it on its side, I thought there was a stop or something in it. I didn't know. So it's like rusted like crazy. And I'm like, dude, that's kind of a cool shield. Well, you'll see in the sketch, I didn't have the shield, but she was also missing something. There wasn't a balance to it. And so I was like, cool, we're going to have a shield. She's going to wear a shield now. And I threw that on. And when I shot the model, she didn't have any rope. She's just she has little pasties and she has her underwear because I want the flexibility of adding fabric or having something wrapped around her body, or what if I went this way with it? And so I was like, well, what do I got for rope in here? I have twine that I use to wrap up my client gifts. So I shot some twine and just took little tiny pieces and built every single string on there and had to detail all of them. And that took forever. And that was definitely one of the parts that I was like, I hate this piece. I'm never going to finish it. I'd rather light my computer on fire. Like, it is the worst. But that all changed when I got to the triangles, which are potpourri. It's a little cone triangle that's in a potpourri thing. And then I had to detail all of those tiny little twigs, each little twig line. And that really, I was so over this. Once I got those done, I was like, she's got to be balanced on something. So the triangle at the bottom there under her feet is just a drawn triangle. I just made a block color triangle. And then in perspective, I kind of looped it around the top so that it looked like she had something that she was standing on. And I put the same texture that was on the shield on that triangle at the base. The rock that's on top of is just a rock that I picked up from outside because I didn't want to go on a hunt. I just picked it up. The cliff there is my basement that I detailed with different brushes of how I would texture in studio for an actual painting. And the background is just all painted from different pictures that I grabbed throughout my process of designing. And the sparrows were the last minute ad you saw in the video. We have chickens. And so anybody with chickens, I don't know if anybody has chickens, but you throw corn, you're going to get a ton of birds. And so we have like 60 sparrows that are constantly out there. And it's like a flood. Like you'll just see a giant mass black cloud whenever you throw out corn because they're going to get the corn before the chickens do. So I just took my camera outside and I'm like, I'm not a wildlife photographer, but I mean, there's enough sparrows, I'll catch something. So I just started taking pictures of sparrows and trying to make it fast so that I could get the wings detailed because they always get me. They always get me if the wings are blurry or if I don't have enough detail in them. So I took a couple pictures of sparrows and I wanted to create the tension. So having one that's just about to land brings the tension to the story and pulls you back into the subject. And one thing in just competition aspect is that little tiny bird that's in the distance there. They were not a super fan of this on most panels. And oh, you can't even see it in the close-up version. You can kind of see a wing. But all of those things together were just, what do I have that's near here that can work out? And I made it work. So it doesn't have to be super fancy. You have to be dedicated enough to yourself and to figuring out what way works for your brain and how can we make it effective so that it all plays together in a story. Now, with the 2-day workshop, I know we're coming to a close. We'll be talking about creating the vision, and we're going to talk about really coming to grips with generalized process or where you want to start with something and how to really start and build up those layers. We're going to talk about building sets and props. So one of the videos that I have down here at the bottom is some bat wings. And these bat wings, I just had to come up with it because I had a client who wanted some bat wings for their cat. And I'm like, let's do it. And so I took on the challenge and I'm like, we're making some bat wings. And I figured, how do you make bat wings? Because they're almost see-through. So you would need it to be able to have the glow of the light. But I just grabbed some wire that I had and like hot glued them together because I don't know how to weld. And was like, we're gonna make them stick. And then I took pantyhose and stretched it over the form and thought, well, if you hot glue stuff together, that still shows light through. So I sat there, you saw in my pajamas, my little red pants, that I just poured hot glue and then would squeeze it and make little texture by squeezing my fingers along the ribbing of the bat wings. And my husband just died laughing because I burned myself constantly. I have a high-powered heat gun, but I wanted to make them work. They were cool. So that's one of them. And building those sets and those props and just like in cardboard, I'm going to talk about silicone. I'm going to talk about resin. I'm going to talk about using just clay to create something that has the dynamic texture that'll catch the light and shadow so that you don't have to draw it as much as you would starting from scratch and doing like the ball exercise where you're building up from nothing. And there is a piece in competition currently that I can't show that I did only photograph the model and I built everything else from tools in Photoshop like I did the ball and that video in the very beginning of just making it develop through light and shadow and textures. And when I tell people that, they're kind of just like, I'm sorry, what? But wish I could show it. I can't. But it's cool. It takes a lot longer. So doing it this way cuts time by far. And we're going to talk about lighting for the composite, how to shorten that time even more, editing for the unconventional artist, and embellishing in a way that is both outside of Photoshop and in Photoshop. Because when I embellish on canvas or on paper, I do the exact same thing as I would in Photoshop. I'm adding detail, I'm adding layers, I'm adding texture. When I make brushes in Photoshop, I'm doing it with the brushes that I use in Studio, and I'm making random stabby points, taking that picture, making a brush out of it, and then creating the brush to do the exact same thing in Photoshop. So I'm playing in both realms simultaneously, and it makes it just more fluid. And looking at it that way, it just helps. It's so much fun. So there is one little video that I can show of like detailing hair. So judges, close your eyes for a second. You might pay attention to a little bit of this piece, but if you see just adding color, I'll stop it there. You might be able to tell more. Seeing this little video, I'm just adding some detail to the hair and in the darks. It's just a line. So it's one of the brushes that I've made that's my sharp precision brush that it rotates as you rotate with the art brush pen, and I draw in the different colors and layers of hair because as hair, I don't know if you can really see it. When you study little things like this, and I have to as an AFONT, but the different layers will have different colors. And so if you pinpoint those colors and set those colors to the side, pick the color, draw, draw, draw. Pick the next highlight color. Where is the light reaching? And draw it on. That's exactly how you paint on a canvas. So I'm doing the same thing, but in Photoshop. And then I will touch on embellishing and how to get started, what you can use. And we're going to cover that also. And really paying attention to color in all of its different forms. So there's a little picture down here at the bottom. And a lot of people don't realize this, but paying attention to color in excess and knowing those little details, you might not be aware of unless you're taught or you have an art background or somebody is really neurotic about it, like I am. Color changes based on not only light, temperature of light, but situationally. So if you have this row of clay colors and you start to submerge it, you can't paint someone underwater and use the same neon colors that you would above water. So looking at this little image down here, the depth is 150 feet, but it only looks like you have about 4 colors. But that's a whole rainbow of clay pieces. And I just screenshotted that from Facebook because I was like, dude, this is legit. So it's a great example. Color will start to change as you change it situationally. So being aware of that and implementing it into your work, it blows people away. So I am super excited about the 2-day workshop. I hope you guys want to jump in and learn a bunch. I'm going to be covering a ton of stuff, but here's a way to reach me. This is my website. I have a little promo code for you guys. I have textures that I paint on watercolor paper with different inks and metallics and do backgrounds and textures there. So that's a promo code if you guys want to go jump on, get some of those texture packs or background packs. I am not great with Instagram. I am learning. I am not a master. So I probably won't post much, but I'm learning it. So I will be more active in the future. So go ahead and give me a follow if you want. That's also the Facebook page for it. But you can contact me on the website and let me know. If anybody has questions, go for it.
Go ahead and unmute yourselves. I know there are questions. Fujiko, you don't have to raise your hand, just shout out.
Yeah, just yell, Fujiko.
Well, it helps if you turn your microphone on, Fujiko.
Well, you blew my mind while we're waiting for Fujiko to get it together. So thank you.
I did, yay!
Yeah, that was so awesome.
Thank you. I'm glad you got
Go,
some.
girl.
Is
Very
your
inspirational.
is your class
Totally awesome.
online?
What?
Is the class online or is it in person?
Online
Online.
2-day workshop with ASP is in November.
Yes.
And you will get a copy of the recording,
Okay.
you know, to have. So I think that's a great value.
Dwight, you jumped on.
Oh yeah, Dwight snuck in here.
So
And I
many cool
see some
here.
people were able to register. I apologize that the pricing wasn't readily available. If you logged in later, the early bird pricing is $199 for members and $229 for non-members. I cannot wait. Kenzie is just beginning to teach. You see, she's got so much to offer. I think we're lucky that we got in early.
It's hard to narrow it.
Oh my gosh.
Lucky, you know, that she's willing to work with us on this, and it's going to be fantastic. But does anyone have any questions about what we covered today?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Now we
Yes.
can.
Oh, finally. Kenzie, I'm so happy you're here.
Well, thank you, Fujiko.
I just, when I was with Kenzie in a workshop, I came to the room and there was this lady on the floor.
Yeah, I have a terrible
Everybody was seated and she was on the floor messing up all the paint, and she ended up with such a beautiful piece.
I sit on the floor often. Best way to phrase it is there's not a table big enough for me to have all of my stuff, and I want My desk is the exact same way, but I'll sit on the floor because I have my pastels, I've got my charcoal, I've got my pencils, I've got all this, and I want to be able to reach all of it. So I'll sit on the floor and spread out, and that's how I work when I embellish and do my art. So I also edit a lot on the floor unless I'm using this big old screen to do the competition prints. But yeah, I catch a lot of flack for sitting on the floor in my terrible posture.
So one of the things I think is really cool that Kenzie does is, well, she pointed out that IPC and all of that, we have our sandbox where we are, and then there are other sandboxes in the fine art world and other things. One of the things that I am really interested that Kenzie does is she will manipulate the images after they are printed, so they've been physically touched by the hand of the artist. There's been organic material. And if you start showing in some galleries, you'll find that there's a lot of value associated with that, because each piece, even if you have the same base photograph, each piece is unique in and unto itself. And collectors and buyers really get excited about that. So,
And one thing that I don't even think we talked about this, Eileen. I just last year got all the stuff for platinum palladium printing because I missed the dark room. So Robin knows you've played with it. So it's just UV exposure. And so I started making the prints and those inverted prints of the fine art series and playing with that palladium printing for galleries potentially. And it's so interesting. It's so fun to play with all that and just have the option. So yet again, more stuff to
yeah,
put,
yeah.
put
That's all
now.
about a good digital negative.
Yeah,
Hundra, yeah.
it's fun.
Fujiko, I had to mute you because you have two different windows open and your Kenzie was echoing. But was there anything else you wanted to say? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, I don't know. My audio is crazy, but no, I just wanted to say that this is going to be a very, very, very different, good workshop, very inspiring, and I know how Kenzie works for the little bit I saw her. Well, and she's just out of the box, out of the conventional, and it's very inspiring.
Thank you, Fujiko.
This is Carolyn. I have a question. Have you
Yeah,
started
Kenzie.
to get into galleries at all yet?
I have been working on it. From what I have heard from Brooke has told me you need like 30 that are consistent pieces that show your style and that you have a cohesive vibe that you can show. Like if a gallery says, yeah, we like your stuff for the 3 pieces you showed us or that we saw, bring in your work, you need to have a portfolio of like 30 that are consistent.
Yeah.
So I think I'm up to like 18. So I
Got it.
could approach galleries right now with 18, but I would feel more comfortable if I finished these pieces that I was working on currently before I can go in and talk to them. From what I've been told, I would really take off in Amsterdam. I don't know anyone in Amsterdam. I don't know how to reach Amsterdam. So I'm just kind of hoping that like I stumble onto some galleries. I know ASP has the Maker's Muse, and having that availability is going to be awesome. But am I in there currently? No, I don't have the huge portfolio of this new work to be able to demonstrate to them. So I haven't been to Amsterdam, Rhonda. I don't know, but if you
It's
know
pretty
people, hit
fun.
me up.
It's pretty fun.
So did
Anybody
anything
else?
resonate with you guys? Anything you have questions on?
Oh my God, I just love you. And I know that you know that. And I'm just going to tell you again because you're inspiring. This was incredibly timely. I appreciate you. I love you. But I know you know that.
You're gonna make my face hurt. I'm smiling.
Well, lots of love in the chat box. And we're all excited about your workshop coming up, but also, very inspired by what you presented tonight and all of the information that you shared with us this evening. I really appreciate it.
Good. I was hoping it wasn't too much background. I was like, oh no.
No,
I
it's
hope
very
we get
good.
something out of it.
Yeah, you gave us a lot of good things that we can take and use as tools in our toolbox right now, which
Good.
which is wonderful. So I'd like to just kind of wrap this up and remind you all that next Thursday is our Images of Distinction Round 2 Awards Ceremony, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. So be sure to log in for that. And the following Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, it's IOD and the exhibition collection, how you prep your files for print. But whether you're in those collections or not, what you learn there will help you if you're prepping files for print in any kind of printed material. If you're doing a coffee table book of your own that is not printed just by a print lab that takes the JPEGs and does all the work themselves, it will show you how to have the best print possible in terms of shadows and highlights, because it really is a different kind of animal than what we're used to working with. So be sure to log in for that as well. You still have time to sign up for Cruising the Danube, our international trip for 2026 with Dennis and Sherry Hammond, who are both ASP fellows. You do not have to be a member of ASP to go, and it will be fantastic. The details are on our website. I apologize that our pricing wasn't on there when you went to register. We will correct that today or tomorrow. We're still kind of getting the hang of getting things logged on there, and there's a limited number of people who can do that for us right now. But as we move forward, it will be easier and easier for you guys to use. If you are members, be sure to log in, get your new password, set up your profiles, and see what all is there, because it's incredible. We've got our fellows' portfolios and their papers for EA and the fellow. We've got all kinds of amazing stuff that you can see. If you're not a member, you can go online and you can see our best of the best for each year. And the best of the best are images that score, what is it now, Thea?
85.
85 and up?
Mhm.
And
Are they on there now
On the new website, they are.
for this year?
No, not yet.
Oh, I was
No,
like,
the
before?
the award ceremony is next week, and we don't give names with the images, so that way they can be entered.
So it'll be a little while for that one to be up. But it's just so inspiring to go back and look at all the work that's been created by our members through the years. And especially for people who are not members and aren't familiar with that, I urge you to go and check it out. It is really fun.
And I was going to say a quick plug for the gala. The 2025 Best of the Best video will be debuted at the gala.
January 10th, be sure to book your room for Imaging USA now while there's still rooms available in the room block. You know you want to get it at that discounted rate, because the Gaylord doesn't play with their regular rates. So you want to sign up, be there for the gala on Saturday night, January 10th, and then join us again Monday at the Late Night Lounge. And of course, we have fun stuff going on at the booth throughout the trade show period. So be sure to look for us there. I think that's it. Kenzie, thank you so much again. I'm sorry we ran a little bit over, but not sorry, because we hear so much.
I shortened it way down because I was like, we're starting a little behind. So I'm going to just try not to talk too much. Everyone knows that I'm going to keep talking too much.
It's always recorded. If people have to leave early, they can come back and watch the rest.
That's true. You guys have it on lock.
Well,
thank you guys so much for coming.
Kenzie.
Thank you so much for coming and listening to me ramble. And ASP, thank you guys so much for giving me a platform. This is my first Zoom class, guys.
You would never know it.
Oh, cool. Showing up an hour early to make sure that Zoom works.
Well, everyone take care. Have a wonderful week. And I look forward to seeing you next Thursday.
Eileen,
Thanks, guys.
Yes.
thank you. Eileen,